And one of the things that I've always had the owner tell me is you think like an owner, you'll be an owner one day. But the fractional thing was very appealing. It's been kind of on my radar for a while. It's the right blend to me of the multiple clients from the agency world that I started, and I can get in a lot deeper than a typical agency, which I know you've got that background in as well.
Welcome to the Bold Brand Show. If you're in the AEC industry and want to grow your firm, we're sharing exactly how bold and innovative firms win more. The sad truth is, most firms that are struggling in the AEC industry are still doing things the way we've always done them. But this show is about finding a better way. I'm your host and founder of Bold Brand, Josh Miles. I'm a published author, veteran of the TEDx stage, and a brand strategist with over 25 years of experience. But my superpower is my focus on AEC firms to understand how branding and marketing in the professional services industries is wildly different than for retail brands like Apple, Amazon, or Starbucks. So in this podcast, we're going deep with AEC firm leaders, marketers, and innovators in the AEC industry. We'll focus on the hottest topics and trends in AEC to uncover the growth secrets of the most successful firms and how firms can create lasting legacies and perhaps what the future has in store. I've got a special deal to share with you from my friends at BizNow. I regularly hit up BizNow events here in Denver, and honestly, they're my go-to for networking in commercial real estate and AEC. Each month, they pull together these great panels with heavy-hitting speakers who actually know what's happening right now in different markets. Not just theory, but real deals and trends. What's cool is they're not just a Denver thing. They run these events across the country. So if you're looking to stay on top of market shifts or want to connect with people making moves in CRE, it's worth checking out. If you're interested, check out BizNow. That's BISNOW.com/events to see what's coming up. You can use the code BOLD, that's BOLD, when you register to save 15% on your ticket. Trust me, the connections you'll make are worth it. Special thank you to BizNow.
Welcome back to the Bold Brand Show. On today's episode, we're chatting with an AEC marketing pro I've known for years, Perryn Olson. Perryn, FSMPS, CPSM, CCMP is a fractional CMO with Alt.CMO, providing marketing strategy and leadership for construction and technology companies. Previously, he was the CMO for the REX.one brands, REX Construction, REX Engineering, and REX Technology, which includes SuperDroid Robots. Before REX, Perryn led the marketing, sales, and client relations teams at MyIT as their chief strategy officer. I met Perryn over 15 years ago when he began specializing in construction marketing and led the construction marketing firm, the Brand Constructors, and became a nationally recognized thought leader. He's spoken and written extensively within the built and tech industries, and in 2014, he wrote the Construction Executive's Guide to Brand Marketing. He's a frequent marketing and construction technology podcast guest, and for the first time on one of mine. Perryn, welcome to the Bold Brand Show.
This is fun. Appreciate you having me on.
Yes, sir. Well, on this show, as we talked, we like to go kind of deep on a topic and bring in a guest that will kind of stay focused in one lane, especially around AEC. And of course, today we're talking to you all about marketing and fractional CMO work.
Yeah, that's what I love to talk about. Construction marketing is definitely something I can talk about.
Well, of course, Perryn's a New Orleans guy, and Perryn, as you know, you're on my short list to join us for this live episode that we taped in New Orleans a few weeks back. But my apologies for not being able to work you into the panel. So I was excited and committed to getting a chance to touch base with you here anyhow. So glad to have you on the show.
Well, just means you got to come back to New Orleans, or I'll make it out to Denver. That's definitely on my bucket list too.
For sure. Definitely some of my favorite food in the country in New Orleans. So let's jump into it. I mean, you've spent most of your career working in marketing roles with AEC and other firms. And as we mentioned in the intro, you're now part of a fractional CMO team. You know, I've personally largely kind of worked in entrepreneurship, but I've bounced back and forth a little bit for working for other teams and going out on my own. And now you're finally doing the entrepreneurship or sort of the fractional side. Why is that the right fit for you today?
I've always kind of had that entrepreneurial spirit, but didn't really have the risk tolerance for a long time. So in a lot of the firms I worked with were very small. I was kind of sat in that number two seat. And one of the things that I've always had the owner tell me is, you think like an owner, you'll be an owner one day. So it's always kind of in the back of my mind. But the fractional thing was very appealing. It's been kind of on my radar for a while. It's the right blend to me of the multiple clients from the agency world that I started, but not so many that it's overwhelming. And I can get in a lot deeper than a typical agency, which I know you've got that background in as well. That a lot of times the agency you kind of drive-bys. You come do a rebrand, you might work with them for 6 months or even a year, and then you're done, and you don't kind of see what happens. You don't see it blossom. You can't make real changes and things like that. Versus when you're internal, you can make some of those little small subtle changes, like change out 2 words on the homepage and see what happens, and tweak this, things like that. And you kind of evolve with it. So it's that kind of good blend of the in-house of seeing the smaller minute details, but I kind of get bored having one client or one brand. When I first went internal, I was a mentor brought me in, and he's like, what are you worried about coming, doing this? Because I was his first marketing director, and it was my first internal job. And I'm like, I'm kind of scared to death to work with one brand. I'm used to working with like 25, 30 at a time. And they're like, well, we have a new spinoff we're doing. We're building a SaaS stuff. I'm like, great, two. I was like, still scared to death. So it worked out well. And I ended up kind of doing some other things outside of marketing, like sales management, and even heading up kind of all of our non-technical operations. So learned a lot more about the business side of things. And it was kind of the right time. And even my time when I was at Rex, kind of jokingly told people I was an internal fractional CMO because I had 3 companies and 8 brands that I was overseeing with just a small team of 3 to 4. So kind of got my teeth, cut my teeth on just kind of what that would be like. And I kind of ran it like an agency. We actually had plans potentially building out, like we were calling Rex marketing and bringing in outside clients, but never had the opportunity. And it just kind of made sense to go on my own. I joined Alt.CMO as a principal and actually brought SuperDroid with me. It was my first client. So I stayed with them for a good 6 months until it just didn't make sense anymore. But, they're doing good things. And I've been able to work with some other great companies now.
Yeah, I've always found that my initial agency days, we did a ton of website work.
Yeah,
So similarly, we would make that website and then
you're
we
done.
wouldn't talk to that client again. Maybe
Yeah.
we'd support the hosting or something or do some updates here and there, but we weren't regularly consulting with them. And I love the more relational kind of interaction with clients
Yeah.
so
And
much more than just kind of the make a thing and move on.
And that was even the issue I had with consulting because when I went internal to kind of keep that blood going and stuff, I was still doing some kind of freelance consulting. And when I first went internal, it was actually to an IT firm. It specialized in construction. It was actually what got me into construction was a referral from them in '05. So and I was kind of a free agent in between. So I had a couple of freelance gigs that I was trying to finish up before I came on board, and actually had to start part time. And but I started bringing some of my marketing clients who were coming to become IT clients. So like, go do as much consulting as you want. Just take a PTO day if you got to do it, whatever. Just be fair. So it worked out really well. So one of the things that was struggling with it on the consulting side was because I had that day job. I was like, I'd go do the consulting. They'd pay me whatever, 10, 15, 20 grand to do a good brand audit strategy and all that. And then I'd check it with them a month later, 3 months later, nothing got done. And it just drove me nuts. So then I started working through like, all right, well, I'm going to stay on. And part of my agreement is I'm going to stay on for 3 months or 6 months. And we're going to have check-in meetings every 2 weeks or every month. And nothing, I can get them to a point, and then as soon as I essentially finished, nothing would happen. And, so the fractional helps me keep those things going and, just get the strategies kind of going. And one of the best ways I've heard, the difference between a marketing consultant and a fractional marketer is we have to live with the decisions we made. We can go put a strategy in 6 months. We're eating our own cooking per se. We're not just hitting that strategy and running out the door. But we still get the nice blend of one foot in the company. We get to know who they are, which is really cool because sometimes I get a call from a CEO like, hey, I had an idea and I know them well enough that I can have an informed conversation with them versus if I was a consultant, I didn't know them well enough. They'd have to get me back if I even knew them once, they'd have to get me back up to speed what's going on and stuff. And I kind of give them that little, I don't know, this is best practices thing. I couldn't give them a real answer, but now I can give an answer pretty much on the spot because I know them. I know what's going on. I know the moving pieces. I know the people. So that's a really cool feature. I think is just really powerful. And I kind of get more in the business. Like I've always kind of had that, marketing blends into the business conversations. And one of my clients calls me his business shrink. So it's been fun.
Yeah, I love that. I always say that fractional CMO is a really good fit for somebody who is um, like maybe has marketers and maybe understands marketing, but they don't really have anybody to lead
Yeah,
marketing. So like you said, somebody to hold the team accountable, but
yeah,
also then you're sort of being held accountable to your advice because they're coming back to you after that thing's done
yeah.
for what's the next thing and how did that work and is that actually impacting us positively?
Yeah, and that's where I think fractionals fit in construction really well. And all of AEC is because kind of the laggards of, the industry when it comes to promoting marketing, especially the construction side, they really weren't adopting. I mean, when I first got into construction 20 years ago, it was sometimes hard to convince a company to like update their website, even
Mm,
have a website sometimes. And then we have
yeah.
now the conversations more about social or even AI. But it's kind of ridiculous to have somebody tell you I don't need a website nowadays, but we still run across them.
Right.
We still run across construction companies without websites today in 2025. Um, but it's because there's this laggard, there's and so many of the marketers that are in AEC or proposals, not really marketing.
Hmm.
There's really a void now of marketing leadership. So especially the smaller medium companies that haven't been able to groom somebody that go in that role, there's not somebody to come in. I mean, there's some great AEC marketing consultants out there, but there's just not enough of us. So
Hmm.
the fractional model fits really well in this space because we can really help fill that gap. And I actually prefer my clients to have in-house marketers because otherwise we kind of become the marketing in a box. And they're like, "Why didn't you post on social media this week?" Like, because that's not driving effective growth. Like, let's go
Right.
work on something much bigger than just a LinkedIn post. Yeah, that's important, but that's small compared to the other things I can spend my time on. You don't really want your CMO making a LinkedIn post. No, so I love having this team in there and helping mentor them. It's a big part of my career has been mentoring, and so it's I kind of feel like I'm that bridge between the leadership and then the marketers. And there's definitely a disconnect between just the understanding of marketing. Sometimes there's just an age gap. Like, if I had a 65-year-old CFO one time, he's like, I don't know what to do with her. Like, she's younger than my granddaughter, and he just didn't know how to talk to her. He was almost like hesitant. And I'm like,
Hmm.
you've managed people for 40 years. How do you not know how to talk? He's like, yeah, but the gap now is wider and wider. And and it was their first marketer, and he's like, if
Mm.
she was in accounting, I'd be fine. He just didn't know. So that was a big part of just I would help to explain to her, you know, here are the business goals and here's how they tie to the marketing strategy and help give her the roadmap. And she would go do the tactical work and things like that. And I was trying to train her on construction. Of course, she wasn't from the industry. So this is why we're doing this in construction. This is why this is important to the business. This is why we're not doing this. Things like that. So
Well, maybe that's a good segue too. I'm curious to hear what kind of a day-to-day role looks like for you as a fractional CMO.
it's juggling chainsaws and bowling balls and things like that. It's it's definitely a bit of a juggle because you're going to have any fractional would have 3 to 5, 6 clients at a time. Just that's the business model, and you spend a lot of time in meetings. Like yesterday, I was in meetings from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and but they're productive meetings, and there some were. I was doing a story brand in the morning, and then I had a client check in with one of our CEOs. Then I had a lunch with a mentor, and then I had a couple other just productive meetings with marketing teams of helping them with different projects or initiatives. And so there's definitely a lot of meetings, but I don't like to have meetings for meetings' sake. Yeah, we want to stay high level. Kind of the 3 buckets I say of a fractional marketer is the marketing strategy, which you got to create and then manage and make sure it's continuing. And then the executive leadership. There's somebody in that seat and that's kind of speaking up for marketing and the voice of the brand, essentially in the leadership team. And sometimes the voice of the client if there's not a sales counterpart. And then the mentorship of the marketers. A lot of them are coming in very green. I've even got a few that are they've been into marketing for 10 years, but they're still new to the AEC, and they're trying to understand. Okay, where is this? Or they maybe came from a different trade contractor, like a different discipline. They're trying to just get their boots dirty, and understand what they're doing.
Yeah, I always say there like is a continuum of sort of flavors of CMOs. There's sort of the pure lead gen, numbers, analytics, the very data technical driven. And there's like on the other end of the continuum is kind of the brand and the story side. Maybe no surprise that I live over down that way.
Yeah.
But where do you fall in that continuum?
Brand positioning is definitely a big part of what I do. I find that just kind of grease the skids. Once you figure out that positioning, it goes from there. I would say the other side is the sales enablement. I'm not a big lead
Mm,
gen. I can definitely build it out, and I've done it sort of because of my background in construction. I've actually been working with some construction tech startups and helping them kind of build their marketing teams and build their initial lead gen and things like that. But one that I found is really powerful is just really getting the sales team focused. Who's their ideal client profile? Who should they be targeting? How do they target them? And then how do we mix in marketing? How do we give them, some simple handout sometimes is just all they need, as a follow up, or train them. Don't send the SAQ as the introduction email, because engineers like to do that. That's a fault if they request it only type thing, and just building. I wouldn't call it account based marketing to a marketing professional. We kind of starting to get them the path of account based marketing, and if it starts taking off, then we can build a more robust version. But getting them to start thinking of that ABM methodology of, we're not going to chase everyone. We're gonna tear out our clients, and we're gonna prioritize them and personalize, getting some of the core tenets of ABM, but we're not putting in the full software gently from the start, because it's a big pill to swallow for a lot of them.
great. I always used to joke that if you want to see the future of AEC, you can just look at what other industries are doing right now.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
we tend to be a little bit behind. I think the joke is less accurate than it used to be, because firms are definitely moving forward more. I'm seeing more and more CMOs in seats, especially at bigger
Yeah.
firms. So I'm curious what your opinion is on who are the right kind of firms in AEC for a good fit for fractional CMO.
The ones that know there's a void, it's when I kind of go look for companies that are in EOS, because EOS is entree operating system is big on the right person in the right seat. Well,
Mm-hmm.
generally, when they start aligning themselves, they realize, the CFO or the CEO's got too many seats they're covering, as they're growing. But they're like, I'm not putting that marketing coordinator in the executive leadership team. Like that, there's a disconnect. They're not ready for that. In many cases, they're not. And that's where a fractional can slide in really well. So it's the kind of those up and coming companies. I love companies that kind of figured out how to make money, and now it's just how to grow. I don't like working with companies that are trying to make payroll next week. Like, that's just, marketing is not a short term
Right.
return. It is, we're going to make some money. Let's invest our time and resources today to make money 6 months, 6 years from now. Like, my favorite clients to work with is the small trade contractor, Omaha, the siding roofing. And like within the first week of working together, it was like, Perryn, I don't need your help this year. I mean, we started working last year together. He goes, I want you focused on 2025 to 2030. And
Hmm.
that's where we're focused. We're almost always a year out. Yeah, we're doing some stuff. Like, it's like, hey, I got a great opportunity. I need a slide deck for next week. Yeah, we'll go knock that out. Like, that wasn't really on the roadmap. We'll go knock that kind of stuff out. But we're constantly kind of like, what are new business models? Like, they've never done new residential construction. So we're building out, how do we go after these home builders that fit their profile to do the kind of roofs and siding that they want to do, and really capture, okay, what do we want to do? They're adding new service lines, and we're trying to figure out how all that fits in, not just today, but long term. Like, they have a new metal bending machine they're getting next week, because it fits in line with the vision that the VP of finance and strategy and I have been working on. So that's what we're kind of focusing on, is just how do we keep doing that? And it all started as, last year we sat down, okay, where are we trying to go? And one of the conversations we're constantly having is, they're not looking at selling anytime soon, but they know eventually that's going to happen, whether it happens in 20 or 30
Mm-hmm.
years. Do you want to be a cornerstone company that becomes the company they build and attach other companies to? Or are you going to be a roll up? It's just kind of sucked up into and attached to a cornerstone. And they've very adamantly say, we want to be a cornerstone. We want our brand to stand. Well, that means we got to do things a certain way. We got to start building out processes and being more, build out the foundation now, even though we're probably not going to sell in 20 years. So that's a big piece of the conversation. And it's like, it changes. Sometimes guys, we just sell next week. We just get out of this. Like, no, guys, that's, you're just having a bad week. Let's move past it. And, and that's because we're having those frequent conversations. We know the bigger plan. I can kind of steer them back, and they're just, they're having a bad week. So,
Yeah, I was chatting with the guys at AEC Advisors on the previous episode, and they were talking about how, unsurprisingly, the things that you would do to get your firm ready to sell are the same really
oh
smart
yeah.
decisions that you make to make your firm
Oh
last for 30 more years before you ever have to sell. So it's,
yeah.
they're all connected.
And it's also good just to get the leadership team out of the day to day. That whole build to sell, you build a company that you can walk away with. Like every once in a while, someone's like, what's a good barometer to see if a company's healthy to sell? Have the exact, whoever the core CEO, CFO, whatever, they need to leave for a month and like
Hmm.
leave. No emails, no phone. Like they need to be able to be gone. If the company can sustain for that person gone for a month, the company
Hmm.
can survive. What they're lacking though is the long-term vision. That's where that CEO should plug back in. And generally, if they're gone for a month, they're going to come back with some really interesting ideas. Because a lot of times they've had time to unwind and kind of think back to the future, or they've also had time to kind of talk and look around and things like that. And it's really interesting to see when those people kind of come back. You kind of have that Steve Jobs Apple 2.0 effect.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's both like a systems thing and a people thing. So
Yeah,
if you've got all the data in place and all the systems ready to go, but you
yeah,
also have to have somebody else to step into that role and somebody to step into that person's role. So
yeah.
it's a lot of things that need to be able to
Oh,
flex for that person to actually leave for an extended period.
yeah. And that's probably the biggest issue across professional services, not just AEC, but it's definitely hitting construction. We're seeing tons of reports of the age of the field workers. Like the average age of
Hmm.
field workers in the mid 50s right now. That's scary if you really think about it. And it's not just there; it's the leadership. I mean, there's definitely companies that don't have that next generation ready to step in, and it's getting there. And some of it is just the Gen X is a smaller generation, the baby boomers. So you're kind of waiting for the millennials to literally just age up. But some of them kind of got tired of waiting and they went on their own firm, or Gen X being the rebels went and started their own firms anyway. So there's this 20, 30-year gap between the executives and the directors or the manager level. So, like, and that's nothing new. I mean, since I've been in this industry 20 years, we've been in a labor shortage for 20 years, and it won't be resolved in the next 20 years unless we severely get into or seriously get into robotics, which is one reason why robotics and tech is so prominent in accepted in construction versus other industries because we need to fill spots we don't have versus we're not replacing people like we did in the industrial revolution. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, I had a client years ago, uh, before my daughter, so at least 10 years ago, I worked with, and like the challenge was how do we transition the brand from the fourth generation to the fifth generation on their 100th anniversary? That was when they were going to essentially announce the fifth generation was taking over at the 100-year party. And I did, we do pre-meeting surveys and stuff. And one of the questions we asked all the employees, it was a small contractor, like 25, 30 employees. The question was, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And nearly every one of them said retired or dead. And like, I'm
Oh,
driving there
no.
because it's a contractor about 2.5 hours west of me. And I'm like, I wasn't driving. I was in the passenger seat flipping through this on the drive, just to clarify. Um, and so I'm looking, I'm like, holy shit, this isn't fifth generation. This isn't the owner son taking over for the dad who was a big enough feat because the dad was a bit of a, well known in this local community. It was the son and the team that doesn't exist today taking over for the team that's currently running the entire show and has been for decades. It's like they
Mm,
had two people in the office under the age of 30, and then this owner's son was in his mid 30s, and everyone else was like 55 and up. Like that's a
mm,
huge transition, and like okay, and they didn't see it. They just kind of like, oh, son's gave over dad, and no big deal, and we'll make this happen. And that was their focus. I'm like, guys, you're missing the tip of the like that's the tip of the iceberg. You're missing everything underneath it.
mm,
And it wasn't even that. Like as you really dug in, like the lawyers, the IT, the accountants, like all the dad's people that he had hired over the decades were also retiring next year. So like even their support teams were gonna all be gone. So I mean, it's almost like it almost be easier just to start a new company at this point. But yeah, we helped them through that transition, and almost like, and that was really one of the first times I saw like that light bulb of like, this isn't just marketing strategy, this is real business strategy now. Like, because if you don't have the business plan in place, we can't do a marketing strategy.
Well, I would put that in the category of pressing issues that marketers are facing in this
Yes.
market that has nothing technically to do with marketing.
Yeah. Well,
What else are you, any other big
even that,
issues that
like
marketers are dealing with?
I'm helping a client with a bid. They're going after the first construction manager at CMAR because they lowered the limits in Louisiana. And so a friend brought me in, and so they're going after this job. It's a small contractor, and one of the lines in the proposal says you can exclude the owner and CEO's bio because we don't care. Like it's in the
Interesting.
proposal, and in the presentation section, it's like we don't want that. Well, in this company, they're small. The chief estimator and pre-con is the owner and CEO. So it was kind of a discussion. That's why I got brought
Just
up,
change the
like,
title.
yeah, well, that's CEO slash chief estimator officer is what it really kind of came down to. But it's, yeah, that there's a void in a lot of these companies of that. Yeah, it's a huge challenge of these businesses. And just, I think one of the challenges I've seen marketers, and I've had a lot of construction marketers kind of reach out to me over the years, kind of like, how do you deal with bad safety? Like, somebody died in the field. How do we fix that press? Like, that's a
Mm,
reality that you don't have to deal with in a lot of industries. Like, you might have somebody pass away in accounting or legal, but they didn't do it in the field doing work. And that is definitely a reality in construction. We got to handle sometimes, and a lot of times it's, unfortunately, it's, you need to be proactive. Like, you need to have a good name and a good reputation and some PR out there. So if somebody does Google your name, it's just coming up, just all the bad stuff. Um, no, so that's definitely a challenge, and just the whole access to pictures is an issue. I mean, architects are really great about taking photos and getting professional photographers out there, and you can put in the rendering. Man, construction, they generally will buy the architects or kind of chip in on that. But like, I want to see pictures of people doing the work. Well, then we got safety violations to go
right.
work through, and it's hard to get pictures from the field. And there's also like many clients, they work in industrial sectors. You can't take pictures from the field. They don't
Mhm.
want it for, so there's a lot of stuff that just the plants don't want, or they don't want their intellectual property shared, or how they do things, or even just 9/11 changed some of the rules. I had a client I
Mhm.
was working with way back then, and it was, he's been in the plants taking all these photos and stuff, and it's all of a sudden, as soon as 9/11 hit, he's like, we can't take any photos, period. And get rid of anything you've
Oh
ever taken in
wow.
our plant before, because it's became national security.
Mm.
So that is something. How do you sell something, that you can't see? And that's usually one of the beauties of AEC, is we have all these things we can show. I mean, if you're an MEP engineer, you can show a closet full of pipes and electrical wires and like the air ducts. Like, yeah, it's not sexy, but man, it shows what you do. But if you can't take a picture of it, how do you sell it? Are you going to put up the BIM drawing? No. Like, no. So sometimes you get creative. Sometimes you put in rendering. Sometimes you mock up things. AI is helping a little bit with that, I think, because we can at least, you should be visible. Like, hey, this is an AI rendering of what we built, due to confidentiality reasons or whatever. So,
Yeah, I remember one of the marketing directors at an old MEP client of mine used to call that the building undergarments. Like
yeah,
nobody wants to show the 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 ductwork and the pipes and the wires and all
oh
that. I think firms have gotten more creative about how to show that and to incorporate like,
yeah,
a guy in there doing something with the thing. So you're showing your people and
yeah.
it's more than just showing the conduit, right?
Oh yeah, and it's, yeah. When I was at REX Engineering, we did structural engineering and MEP and even steel connection, but we actually chipped in money for a big photo, of the headquarters that we'd done, and we got to pick a couple of shots. So I put in there, like, I want to see the telecom closet, and also, like, based on what my engineers had told me, like, what's special about this building. So like, we literally wanted a picture of, like, a close up of the exposed ceiling, because they had like actually
Hmm.
designed what the air ducts and stuff would look like. And then actually the telecom had a lot of stuff in it, from building automation, security, like. And I get a call from the architect. Why do you want to take a picture of this? I'm like, because that's our work. Like, we're not really getting judged on like how beautiful the atrium is, or how nice the conference rooms are. That doesn't
Hmm.
showcase our work. So if I'm paying for this, you said in the agreement we can have a couple of shots. I'm like, it's like, I haven't seen that before. I'm like, well, your MEP firms don't have marketers on staff.
The sort of the running joke, especially in SMPS circles, is like, nobody went to school for this. There's very
No.
few programs in the country, if any specifically, that specialize in marketing for the AEC or built environment.
Yeah.
So if you were talking to a student, or a young person who's thinking about switching careers and interested in marketing, interested in design, interested in something in that area, and they're considering AEC, what would be some of your advice for them for getting started?
Um, it's a great industry. First off, I love the construction industry for a couple of reasons. One, it's cool to be a part of something that gets kind of built. It's a pile of dirt, and then a year or two later, there's a building there. There's a stadium. There's a new road, and it's really cool. Even though we're not doing it, but you feel a part of it. You're part of the pursuit plan. You're part of the team. You're part of the team that it's the company, and that's really cool. It's just like and with your background in design and marketing, you drive around, you see a client's billboard, you're like, oh look, it's like you're working the wild. That's always a cool feeling. So it's cool to be part of that. But just the construction people, and I talk more construction because that's more of my thing. I haven't done as much architect and engineer over the years. Very little architects, some engineering, but heavy construction over the years. Um, they're just good people. The people I found are the kind of the shysters, the bad people in construction. They don't believe in marketing, so I don't really run across them. So
Right.
it's kind of the fact. And there's just a lot of family-owned businesses. I love working with these multi-generational companies that have been around for decades, some even centuries. It's just cool to hear their story and helping them continue on that company. And that's a cool thing about it. So, but to really get in and do it is just get a job doing it and then get out in the field. The best advice to get anyone who's new to industry is get your boots dirty. Get out in the field, meet the people there. They'll respect you more, but you'll have a true understanding of what your company's doing and why. And just kind of it's more tangible. And it's also just fun to go to job sites, like I find. But it's the mistake I had. Like I was consulting with a company for a while, and it was one that eventually didn't implement a lot of things. It was an MEP firm, and they had hired a new marketer and business developer. And after he was there over a year, and she thought MEP stood for mechanical emergency and plumbing. And like literally, the principal, he went to his partners and he's like, she's got to go. Like she doesn't get what we do. And it's like, because she never went in the field. Like, even though like part of her onboarding was
Oh,
to go in the
right.
field and go, like, they had a field superintendent to go check on things and progress and all that stuff. She never went with them. And I'm like, that's where you're going to get your best education, what you really do. And then sit back with your engineers and ask them, hey, I saw this building today, what you guys did. Can you explain to me what happened? What changes? And I'm like, you have electrical engineers on your team, and you still thought the E in MEP stood for emergency. Like, because she never went to the field. She didn't have that tangible. It was just an acronym to her. And it's like, if you've never stood in an HVAC room, you've never stand in the boiler room, you never stood in a telecom room, do you really understand what you're doing?
Hmm.
So it was just, it's all those things. Yeah, the best advice is just, appreciate the industry for what it is, but then just get your boots dirty.
Well, I know the way that we met early on was sort of through the speaking circuit at
Yeah,
SMPS, and you've done lots of speaking. I always make it a point to sit in on your sessions when I see you at
same.
a conference. Side point, it's been a few years since I think we've been in the same building, but
It probably
um,
because I don't speak as much with kids. It was once my wife got pregnant with her first kid, she's kind of like, you need to chill with the speaking. So, and luckily digital kind of took over on all that. Yeah, you kind of run in different, I guess, different SMPS regionals and conferences and stuff. So,
yes. Do you find that the speaking that you are doing still is podcasting or webinars? Has that been a good business development strategy for you at your new role?
um, I don't know if it always leads the leads. I enjoy just sharing what I know. Like mentoring is just a big part of what I really enjoy about my job. So I love having conversations, and especially someone like you is more like you and I have a similar backgrounds. Like you and I can more, it's just more of just a friendly chat than like some of the podcasts I've been on. Like they're new to marketing, or like I've been on some
Mm.
podcasts like they're like, you're niche marketing. Tell me about niche marketing. And I'm like, oh, like it's possible. It's generally what I'm trying to explain to them. Or construction tech, kind of what am I seeing? Or like when I was working with SuperDroid Robots, I was on a fair construction tech software, like in construction tech podcast, talking about where robots are going in the construction industry and how they fit. So
Sure.
I just the podcasts and webinars are just a good place for me to just share what I know without having to travel, because I'm very involved with the kids and coach their swim team, and so just I want to be part of their lives. And as they get older and do their own things, I'll be able to do more travel and stuff. But or if I can, sometimes we double dip. Like we're combining a company retreat with my daughter's karate tournament in Dallas next month. So just, we can do both. So it's gonna work out.
Yeah. Nice. What about the tech side of things for you guys? I love nerding out on all the techie things. I don't necessarily do all of them, but
Yeah,
I get excited about what's happening in the future. Is
yeah.
anything in particular that you're doing with AI or other technology as a fractional CMO?
Yeah, I kind of find AI's got two uses, and it's similar to software. You have your big monolith, things, LLMs like a ChatGPT or, Gemini, things like that. They just kind of do a little of everything. And then you got your very task specific things. And I see the same thing in apps. You have your big, you know, um, core applications and stuff like that. Like a Procore, one of my clients is Lennar, who's kind of for the smaller construction. They do a little everything, but then you've got your smaller company, that are like
Hmm.
company can that just take project photos. So marketing and AI are much the same way. It's like we still use the ChatGPT and stuff like that, but one of the tools we just added recently is called Pressmaster, which I love. And what it does is I can set up like an interview. I type in all the criteria what I want to do, and then the AI agent will send the link to my client, and then they log in and they have a conversation with a voice AI agent, and it's actually pretty cool. The only challenge I've had is it has a slight pause when you finish talking, you kind of sit and wait, and then it waits for you to finish talking, and then it kicks in. But
Okay.
like as it's going through, it adjusts the questions. There's like 8 to 12 questions depending on the topic, and you'll say something. I was trying to throw it off the first couple of times I was using it just to see if it worked, and I'd bring something up. Oh, you asked me about this earlier, and I bring it up, and then it asked me to rate. And so that was a cool way to have, and it actually was kind of a catalyst, kind of two parts. Was one of my clients was like, we want to build a lot of content for him, and it's a small company. He's strapped as the owner of this construction tech startup. He's like, but I walk my dogs every day, and that's when he's usually doing his own reading and his emails and reading newsletters and stuff like that. And I was like, the idea was actually him just to do a voice recording and then throw it through AI, translate it, and then I would clean up the blog post and post it. I'm like, but what if we did it this way? And it was be easier for him. So he's testing it out for him. But even my partner, for a couple of his clients, are like an hour and a half away. They're on the other side of Dallas, where he lives in Fort Worth. It's like, can he just do this on the car ride? And so I'm doing that. And you can also text to it as well. But I found the voice one is a great way to get subject matter experts. We're kind of calling this as our strategy, the anti-AI. Like we can go to ChatGPT and say, hey, write a blog post on this, give it the criteria, and it knocks out a blog post in 5 seconds. We got some SEO stuff that can do the same. And they're just going to
Hmm.
write what other people say. So this is our way of how do we truly get from our thought leaders in like 10 minutes, and they can just have a nice, either they can type to it or they can talk to it, and we can get really authentic thought leadership from them that the AI won't
Hmm.
know. So that was kind of our way. So where our plan is, as we continue to evolve our clients and our own content strategies, to blend the SEO things are just super hyped up on keywords, and then these really thought leaderships. And actually now we're starting to back off our SEO ones because they're they're there. And so, or we're posting, we're kind of like pushing them back a couple years. So they're not in the top of the feed.
And what's that tool called that you're using for
Oh,
the conversational stuff?
pressmaster.ai.
Okay. Very cool. I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, it's
That
been a
one's
fun one. I think it might just be for agencies. I don't know if they've gone direct to business. I would assume they would, if you want it, they'll take the money, but I know you're an agency too. So, but if people listening and watching this, they're probably like, oh, that's a cool tool. I've been happy with it. And I just kind of stumbled on it. And I'm always kind of looking for different AI tools. And I've even started keeping this a doc of AI prompts that I've been using and having my team, the other fractional CMOs on my team. We're just kind of building out this like library of prompts and refining them. Like one of the ones I put, I'm like, hey, this one got me a really good result. And one of my other guys is like, hey, add this 2 lines to it just to tweak it and refine it a little bit more. It's like, so I ran the same thing again. It's like, oh, it's even better. So, I think that's something is just prompt engineering is a huge thing. People that love data and they love kind of like a lot of us in the early web days, we all kind of had to get into HTML. Like we understand that. We don't have to literally write the code
right.
anymore, but you still have to kind of train it. Like, especially those images, it's like, you can't just say, give me a person on a job site. You want to get super specific about what you want. And the more specific you can get, the better.
That's a lot of cool stuff on the AI front.
Yeah.
Any other big trends that you're seeing, good or bad, in the marketing space?
Bad is AI, good is AI. Like there's just a lot of crap out there. And I think that's another reason why how do we get more of the thought leadership? How do more authenticity? And I think podcasts are going to get better because you kind of have to know what you're talking about. Like I can't be reading from a script right now. Like it's the versus, and there's probably AI generated podcasts where there's a AI interviewer and AI
Oh,
recipient.
there
There's
are.
probably some
Yeah.
out there, and I've definitely seen some of those. How to make a $10,000 a month off a YouTube channel and you don't show your face, and it's like, is that really what we want to be doing? It's so I think the intent of technology is to allow us to be more human, And I've seen a lot of people kind of say like, I don't want AI making art. I want AI to do the stupid, grunt work so I can go do the art. I
Right.
think it's gonna be interesting to see what we're all talking about in 10 years. What we're really working on and where the world is. And my only concern with all this is like, I know you got kids, and I think my kids are a little younger. Is what do they do? Like, I'm pretty confident in my knowledge that I'm gonna stay ahead of AI and just my industry expertise in particular. The people I'm concerned about are the ones that are in college now that are trying to how do they get ahead of AI? Because AI, the best
Mm,
way it came out about a year ago, it's probably better now. Um, is on par with an intern. You got to train it and teach it and ask it to do things as if you're an intern. Okay. So if you're an intern, how do you learn intern things to then know how to control AI? And then, what are the kids that are like my girls are 8 and 10? Like, how are they going to be dealing with AI in the future? How are they going to have industry expertise or even subject matter expertise if AI is evolved another 10, 15 years from now? That's kind of my only concern with where we're going in the future is what are people going to do for a living? I've always said technology generally offsets. So like if a robot comes in and offsets a welder job, it's for building it's replacing generally a dangerous welder job, but it's building and now a mechanic's job and a computer program. Like, and we saw that industrial. We got rid of certain jobs that are no longer around anymore, like
mhm,
lighting the candles when you're lighting the gas post for the lights at night. We don't need that job anymore. We have electric lights. Okay.
mhm.
Um, and there's some really archaic jobs out there. There's gonna be people that look at what we did in the '90s and the 2000s that are like, oh, that was archaic. I mean, that's kind of scary to think, but you and I we were born a century ago. But that's where I'm just like, where are we really going? And I don't know if it's the Jetsons world that a lot of people are anticipating, and it could be good or bad. Technology always has both sides of the coin.
As a Gen X guy, if we get all this technology and AI and still don't have flying cars, I'm gonna be really ticked off.
I mean, you can go to space technically. So is that a flying car? I think
Right.
that in like, I mean, well, we have trains, super speed trains. We don't have them really here in the United States just yet. They keep
Yeah.
proposing them. Yeah, those kind of things, the teleportation, to get to New York to LA in 5 minutes. I mean, think about what that would do for us.
Yeah, my wife and I always talk about like maybe we could just get a little place in the mountains. And it's like the more that I drive in the mountains, I realize how much you can like get stuck there.
Yeah, I agree.
When there's one road in and out, I was like, maybe we need a helicopter. And she's like, you're not allowed a helicopter. It's like, okay, so we're not gonna be in the mountains.
I remember, in Louisiana, we don't really have mountains. I think we have some hills. We have levees. They're called hills.
Yeah.
Um, but traveling through Boy Scouts and backpacking stuff, we'd go in the mountains of, the North Carolina, Tennessee, and all. And sometimes you're driving up to a trailhead and you look at some of these people's driveways, and I'm like, how do they get down when it's snow? Like
Right.
New Orleans kid, I don't know. Yeah, so but I am curious where technology is going to fit those kind of things, or just basic life things that will make things more accessible. And the internet has changed people. Like there's a lot of people that they're this whole digital nomad. I think if the technology was 5 or 10 years earlier in my life, my wife and I easily would have been digital nomads. Like it just
Hmm.
we got married, bought a house, and settled in. And like if we didn't have that, I think her and I easily could have just done that digital nomad. It would have fit our lives very well, like what we wanted to do and travel and things like that. I've had a developer who he left us working with one of the locations and moved to Laos for a year. He lived like a king because he still had his American salary, and
Yeah,
and he
right.
came back with savings. Uh, so there's different things that I think technology really afford people as well. And just, I mean, now the world is so small. Like, there's people listening to the podcast or, you never would have come across in your career 20 years ago.
Right. Yeah. And, I tell people all the time in my last agency, my model there was sort of to build the empire, right? Like
Yeah,
hire all the people, get the bigger and bigger office. And um, I couldn't have built an agency like what I run now back
correct.
then because the internet wasn't the same and the best talent didn't want to be independent
Yeah,
contractors. They wanted secure jobs and they wanted to come into the office every day. And now we have literally kind of a market opposite of that where a lot
yeah,
of great talent wants to be independent and we're really just set up for a very different future.
yeah. I actually, when I do my corporate retreat in a few weeks, I'm going to meet my partner for the first time. We've never met.
That's
We've been
wild.
together a year and a half. We've never met in person because I mean I feel like I know him. We've been on plenty of video chats for years. Um, and we were introduced by somebody we'd never met in person. Like it was
Oh,
actually through a
interesting.
podcast I did was the introduction, almost 2 years ago that was how we got connected. And it's just many of my clients I haven't met. I don't, only travel. Only a couple of my clients are local, and there's one client I traveled to the annual meeting as to represent the marketing team at the annual
Hmm.
meeting in July. Besides that, there's a lot of my clients I haven't met, and it's interesting of that. But it's weird because the technology. Like when I worked at Rex, I was in Orland still, but the company was based in Chicago, and we had offices in Orlando, Charlotte, Raleigh, and LA. But occasionally I'd go to Chicago and meet with the executive team. And my team, even though they work from home, we were generally around that area. So I got to meet them in person. But because we had worked together for like 6 months via video, we just clicked and kept going. It wasn't a big deal. It was kind of like, oh, you're taller than I thought. That was about it. Like, that was like the only means. Versus like somebody you and I met in person, and now we can stay connected digitally. So,
Yeah. Yeah, one of my first clients, as I was launching Bold Brand, was a fractional gig, and sort of still on the post-COVID scene. So I didn't meet their CEO until we had worked together for almost 8 months, and
yeah,
we were both in the Indianapolis area at the time. So,
that's
and
fun.
it
Yeah.
was what made me think of it was when you said, "Oh, you're taller than I thought," because she looked at me and was like, "Oh, you're really tall," and I was like, "Oh, you're really short." It was just a
Yes.
funny little interaction.
Yeah. No, it's totally that's the case. And yeah, I've got my New Orleans clients. One of them's very big in person, and I was there yesterday, and another one, you know, doesn't really care. So we just meet virtually.
Well, maybe shifting back to some branding
Yeah.
conversation. I know, sort of two branding minds, one to another. I think one of the biggest challenges our industry has truly is differentiation,
Yeah.
because the joke is like when you ask a firm what makes them different, they're like, well, our people make us different, and we're innovative, and they say all the same things.
Yeah.
So if all your differentiators are the same things that your competition are saying, then obviously the industry's not really good at differentiating. How
No.
how do you look at differentiating for your clients, especially in construction?
Sometimes I just kind of it's listening and just asking questions, and some of it was very accidental. More recently, so I've joined Alt.CMO, I've learned more about story brand and started adopting that process. So that was even how I was working with a client yesterday. Like we got a lot of the blocking and tackling, the basic stuff done, but we didn't figure out like the theme, the message just yet, and that's helped a lot. But
Hmm.
sometimes that's still it's not like quite perfect. It helps tie together, builds kind of a theme, something to put on the homepage of the website, something to put on the proposals, but it doesn't say, this is where we're going. And that's why it's kind of the positioning. Where are you good at now? What is your core? And I always want to look to operations for both where you
Hmm.
differentiate, but also your ideal client profile. Because I think the travesty of what marketing and sales can do is bringing in clients that are a bad fit. So that's why I love the word ideal client profile because it's who's the ideal, not
Yeah,
oh we can
that's a
make
great
that work.
point.
It's not a we make this work profile. Um, and even some of the better firms are in doing like ideal employee profiles, and they're really trying to
Mm.
understand that culture. And like there's a firm here in New Orleans that really just kind of gets it naturally. They're called the Renegade. Like that's the name of the construction company. They changed the name from the owner's last name to Renegade a couple years ago. They have Renegade Fest as a big fundraiser for their foundation. Like that's a different culture than you're seeing in the industry. And they just have a different vibe. And everyone knows it. They're the black sheep in the market and they totally own it. They don't care. And and there's other companies like Rogers O'Brien out of Dallas that just they're big in the tech. Like so no surprise they're building the Tesla space hotel. Like they
Yeah.
track data centers and it's a very tech savvy company. They're the ones actually using augmented reality in the field right now. Like they're pioneering stuff. And I met them through the robotics company and just started following their marketing, and they do some really cool stuff and they really get they're Texas only, and they have a lot of family, a lot of second generation employees, but they're a very tech savvy modern looking contractor, so they own it. Versus you figure in construction, we talked earlier, they're kind of the laggards industry. So if you can, tech savvy is actually one of the things you kind of lean into. um, but yeah, I kind of find it's the core out. I think the mistake you can also make in marketing is trying to package, polish the turd, as some people would say. You try to package something that's not really there and it's not authentic because the marketing, the website might say one thing if you call in and you're like, You meet with people like that's not what the website said. I mean, we've all had that with products
Hmm.
we bought as consumers.
Yeah.
We've had that with firms we've hired. Yeah, and I think that's the worst thing we can do is really make that false representation. Both the prospect side, but also the employee side. Because I think, especially in construction, because there's such a trade deficit of the trades, we need to recruit people, and that's kind of half our job anymore as marketers. Is not just how do we get in new leads, is how do we retain and recruit new employees.
Hmm. Yeah, I started hearing maybe 10, 15 years ago, even when clients would come to us for brand and website work, their leading need was to attract and
Yeah,
retain talent better. It wasn't about we need more clients. It wasn't about we need more projects. It was we need the people to get the work done,
yeah.
and we just can't get them to come to us. So how do we put out the right message to that team? And maybe it's a good segue. I think I'm a little biased in that a lot of what I do these days is video, but I
Hmm.
think video is one of those kinds of tools that is a really great way to show what it's like to work at a place for a, employee testimonial, or to,
Yeah.
demonstrate to clients, give you a kind of a sample of what it's like to work with you, and what's your vibe, what's your company culture is like. Are you guys leaning into video at all on the fractional side, or are there other tactics that you are kind of more bullish on at the moment?
It depends on the client. Like we're editing a video, a client just my roofing client just started a new product line, and so they just did their first install a couple weeks ago. So we're just editing all the drone footage and all that stuff together. And they're super excited. Like actually, they started sending out the not quite finished version. It was good enough. They just are so excited they started sending it out.
Right.
But I got a heavy civil contractor that does a lot of horizontal drilling, and they did a great like just hype video is what we called it. Like just
Mm,
because it was purely employee focused. You go to a high school and you play the video, you got high school kids that want to get into construction.
mm,
Right, and that's that kind of stuff. And there's two sides of recruiting in the industry. You've got I need to recruit the high school kids and kids that are thinking of alternatives to college because it's not the right fit for everybody. But then you've got your ones that somebody's been in the industry for 10, 15, 20 years, or somebody's even 40 looking for a job change. Like, but they're a little bit they're looking at things a little different. They're looking, is this company safe? And you can talk all you want on a website. You can have the safety
uh,
page and all the stats. But you show a video of people working in the field, construction guys can figure out that company's safe or not pretty quick. Like for that if that hype video's got a safety issue in it, they're gonna see it. So it's
right.
that's where it's kind of and that's where I've actually found where the I got companies to do websites years ago was and I started in '05 with that. And my first 3 or 4 clients, we were all focused on employee retention and recruiting. I was doing the employee newsletters and the payroll slips, and so like they're
Mm,
old school communication channels. And construction is actually one of the few industries still printing newsletters because they have employees that don't have email, or they want to make sure that the mail is getting to the families. Like they don't want
yeah.
just the email going to the employee; they want the family to see the printed newsletter with the dad or the mom in the pictures. Things they want to be on the fridge. Like that was one of my clients' goals is I want my employees to put the newsletter on the fridge, like on the magnet. Like that dad did this, mom did this, or uncle did this. Like that was one of our marketing goals. So yeah, it's definitely a huge issue, and I think video takes that to another level of just really showcasing. And I mean, man, when you and I started, we weren't thinking hype videos for construction back then. Like that just
Right.
and go back to your differentiate. One of the issues most architects have, you ask them what makes them different, like our portfolio. Like you kind of have to remind them, most of your
Yeah.
buyers can't tell the difference between good and great architecture. Can't
Yeah.
tell, and that's I think the other challenge of selling AEC and actually any professional services. The people that are buying your services are not experts at what they're buying. So whether you're selling legal, accounting, so they don't know. That's why they're hiring you. So how do you really showcase that? And a lot of it goes back to culture. You know, if if you should find companies and prospects that should be like-minded, and if you can recruit employees that are like-minded, it just kind of is a self-fulfilling prophecy. You don't have to try as hard. Marketing is really easy to me when you fix your position, you fix that story, and you tell your story because it works as a magnet. It's attracting the people in, but it's repelling the bad people out. They're not just bad
Mm,
people; they're just a bad fit.
the bad fit, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean that idea is literally what my TED talk over 10 years ago was
yeah,
about, was the paradox of when you deliver A plus work, it's not always received as an A plus because
Oh God, yeah, yeah,
the experience of how you do it and how you talk about it and how you explain it, because most people don't know the technical differences of any product or service
yeah,
they're buying. It's nothing special about architecture or engineering. It's like, I just had roofing work done. I
yeah.
don't know if they did a good job.
You'll know
They said they
eventually.
did. Right.
You'll
Yeah.
know
You'll know
eventually if it
eventually.
works. I mean, it's the same
Right.
with movies. Why is one movie super popular with the general public and the critics hate it? Because the critics are looking at it from a critical eye that they're industry knowledgeable versus the fans are just like,
Hmm.
it's a freaking awesome movie. Shut up, critics. Like, you know, we don't care necessarily about the camera shots. We don't care about the cinematography. Like, you do subconsciously, but you don't care critically. So, yeah, it's all around, and but the difference is you're not buying a $5 tube of toothpaste. Hopefully, it's not that much, but you're investing millions of dollars. And that's another thing I think sometimes construction owners need to take a step back is because I've had one time, I literally had a CEO, I happened to be in his office years ago, and he came in just fuming mad. And I was like, what's going on? He's like, oh, we just lost this bid. Why are they asking so many goddamn questions? I'm like, what's going on? He's telling me it was a $120 million project. And he's pissed off that the
Wow.
client's asking him more questions. I'm like, hey, how much did you research that truck you bought? I spent, he's telling me all the hours he spent. What about the TV you bought? And I was like, okay, puts it in perspective now. TV, truck, amount of money you're spending. Yeah, your truck's probably an $8,000 truck. And you spent how much time you bought it from somebody you even know. Versus they're going to spend $120 million on a building. Don't you think that? And he's finally got he's like, all right. Like, he wasn't really thinking. He just, for him, it was annoying.
Yeah.
He just thought that the client was being annoying asking all these questions. Like, their careers on the line. If they botch this selection, they're going to get fired. They're going to, the company might go belly up, whatever it is. Like, and that's one of the things I think
Absolutely.
people really forget about this industry is there's some irreversible decisions sometimes. I mean, you can kick off a bad contractor, but now your project's stalled, waste a lot of money, you're going to court. We don't want to make this mistake. If you go take a job at a company, you're there for a while. You don't want to leave. That you can get out, but you don't get the time back that you spent with them.
Looks like this story that you're sharing is why a lot of people think their fractional CMO is like their therapist. you're,
Yeah,
you're you're not
yeah.
just coaching through marketing, you're helping him through like life moments in his business.
Well, let me tell you another quick story. A client called me and it's like, "Hey, we got this big opportunity out of state, and the client doesn't want to. We got a verbal agreement. They don't want to pay mobilization charges. And the mobilization for this was going to be like $150,000 because they got to move a big rig, like a big crane.
Oh, sure.
And so I was like, all right, well, if you just did this project and you built an office in their hometown, like where this is at, would you break even? He's like, yeah. Okay, so what's the total addressable market for your services in that location? Well, the location in the middle of nowhere is Arkansas, so that wasn't like it was 50. Okay, what if we moved what's your radius? And we started talking, and his radius, I thought it was gonna be like a 2 or 3 hour drive. His radius was like a 10-hour drive. I'm like, okay, so instead of Arkansas, let's go to Memphis. A 10-hour drive from Memphis is essentially the East Coast. We can get to almost like
Yeah.
the panhandle of Florida, most of Texas, up to Chicago, over to Pennsylvania. So like now we're not talking about how to wait. How does he get the executives to waive a $150,000 mobilization fee, which doesn't actually it does cost them money. Like that's coming out of their profit because they're not paying for the
Yeah.
trucks and the wide load and all that. Like the client's not paying for that now. Like, but now you're talking about is we're building a new location, and the head of sales is just gonna be like, holy crap, like, yes, let's open a new office. Like, it just changed the game. Like, we're instantly have a new office that we can do. This one project makes us profitable. We get no other work. But now we got a rig down there that's in a prime position versus having extra rigs up here. So just that's where I think that I was telling you the best use case of a fractional is yeah, it was a how do we sell this? And he really went, how do I sell it to his boss? Because he doesn't want to lose this giant opportunity. And it's even a
Right.
multi-year project. But it's like a couple months every year for 5 years. And they don't want to pay mobilization every year to keep moving their rig back and forth, but they really want this client or this company to come in. But it's like just changing the phrasing. I was like, okay, well, how do we use this to our advantage? We're already down there. How do we? And he was already kind of thinking that. How do we get at a company, another client, a couple months or a couple weeks before, a couple months after? How do we extend the time we're down there? It'll essentially, disperse or share the load of that mobilization fee. We can get multiple clients in that area. So we just kind of changed the game. Okay, well, what if we just built an office down there and that rig lived there? What does that
Yeah, I
do?
mean, it really reframes the
Yeah,
problem from like we're goes from we're buying the job to we're
Correct.
investing in a new office.
Correct. Correct. And now, because that was even part of the question, it was like, do we move it down there and leave it there? And I'm like, well, if you leave it there, now we have it down there. Like it changes the dynamics of what we're doing. Because that was the big thing. Is it's just like a 5-year project, 2 months for every year for 5 years. Well, do they keep moving the same crane, the big rig, back and forth? It's like,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's just that's one of the funds, and that's where marketing bleeds in the business, and that's the funds. I love those conversations. I wasn't expecting that. I thought we were going to build a sales plan. How do we go target a couple companies and kind of bookend his schedule is what the goal was that meeting, but totally changed.
Perryn, anything else you'd like to see our industry do differently, or is there anything at Alt.CMO that you guys are doing that you think is going to affect that?
We're just trying to build some more transparency. Like we believe not just in the KPIs, but like people need to know what's going on. A lot of our clients have been coming to us and like, hey, we've had this SEO team for years. Some are the American companies that we spent a lot of money with, and they're not getting much, or offshore. Like just kind of that. One of the things we're actually trying to build right now is an AI agent that you can upload a photo and is there a safety violation? Because marketers, last thing we want to do is put a safety violation on the homepage or
Right.
a proposal. And this, a lot of you've been around a while, you can kind of spot them, but you're not perfect. And I've gotten photos before that I'm like, safety's review this, and they're like, yeah. I'm like, what about that? There's an issue in it that I'm spotting, and they just safety's going through it too fast. So there's kind of things. So I just, you know, my hope for this industry would be is that the executives actually let marketing be marketers. I feel like so many times, and you've heard this too, they're boxed into this thing. Go do your proposal. Go do your like. They don't really let them come into
Mm-hmm.
the seat. Like there's a couple of construction companies in this country that are being led by a former VP of marketing. Like they
Yeah.
understood the business, they've moved into that role, and now you have a marketing led contractor, which is really cool. You're seeing engineering firms and architect firms allowing their marketers to become principals, and I think that's going to really start evolving this industry. And I'm not just trying to be selfish of that, but I think marketing obviously has a big voice in the direction of the company. And when I started in the industry, it was very common that the marketing director or manager was just kind of handed, here's the 10-year plan. We hired this consultant, here's the plan, and go figure it out. And they're like, why are we opening up a new office? Why are we doing these new markets? This makes no sense.
Right.
And they're just told to do it. So now they're at least getting not just involved in that decision-making process, but some of them are leading those processes. And there's a lot of the AEC marketing consultants I know mostly lead long-term strategies. Like that's a big part of their business is going into these firms and leading that 5-10 year vision um, exercises. And that's awesome when you have that person helping lead it because they're not just saying, hey, we're going to open a new office here. They're explaining the why, like, or they've done their market research, or they've just, here's the opportunities and things like that. So I think marketers have a lot to offer the business leaders if they're allowed to.
Well, speaking of that 5 to 10 year outlook, this is crystal ball time.
Yeah.
Any bold predictions for what's next in the AEC industry? Maybe hottest market or trends or something that's going to change in marketing?
I think the biggest thing is going to be the robotics. Coming from that, I worked with that space for a few years, and it's not going to start. We're not replacing people with autonomous robots, but we're going to see remote control humanoid robots in the field very soon. And what they're going to do, they're going to be the ones in the ditches. They're going to be the ones welding upside down. They're going to be the ones doing the very dangerous, like robotics they talk about is dangerous, dull, and dirty. Those are the 300 Ds that people want. So if you can get humans out of those dirty, dull, and dangerous places, because dull becomes dangerous in construction. If you keep doing those
Right.
repetitive tasks, they become very dangerous. So you get humans out of that, but you can still have the very skilled craftsman operating the robot, kind of like a surgeon uses robotic.
Oh,
Why
interesting.
can't a welder, do that? Why can't a craftsman use a robot to do certain things that can't be done prefabricated or just dangerous to do in the field? So I think that's going to be a big component. Plus, robots can be built a different size than humans are. Like, there's some jobs that are just really good for big people, and some are good for little people, just as very basic. Well, robots can be small, robots can be big. So just some of the mundane stuff. So it was really cool to when I was working with clients, or even their SuperDroid's clients, and talking to them and where those things mean. Even simple things like, what if we had a tool chest that just followed a laborer? Like the tools followed them, their supplies followed. They could hit a
Mm.
button, and then all the supplies came from the offload area, the laydown yard, and just showed up at their job, like where they were working, because they were spending a lot of time just literally walking back and forth. Like if you put a pedometer on a field, the labor in the field, walking 10 miles a day sometimes, just getting supplies, getting tools, getting stuff, or they get a runner to essentially do it. Well, that's a lot of wasted time and energy. So like the whole industry is very inefficient, and that was some of the studies we were doing was like where manufacturing is making hundreds of dollars an hour per square foot, and construction is making like 2 per square foot. Because
Wow.
and it's the natural, you're building something versus that doesn't exist, and every day is a slightly different ecosystem versus manufacturing. You're in a controlled space. But like, okay, if we can start pushing technology in the field, it's going to push back to the office as well. We've seen the BIM revolution, and now we're seeing more of the marketing stuff. Like I did a demo for Joist AI a couple of weeks ago, and I was just they take the mundane stuff out of looking at a proposal. Like they can take a 100-page proposal and like, all right, here's a page and a half what you need to know. Like that's awesome. Like somebody did that, and referring here's the projects that are relevant. Here's the people. Like it essentially helps. They say get you 40% of the way. I'm not trying to just. I did one demo, haven't used it, but I've heard good things
Yeah.
from fellow FSMPS members. Told me to go check it out. And I have a client that's considering doing it. But there's other tools. Okay, if that's where we're at now with AI, where are they going to be in a couple of years? Those are kind of things that just. And I don't want to make proposal pursuits automated. I don't want to just click a button and have the whole proposal done, but could we just get done with the grunt work that takes us away from getting into the messaging? And I think that's the cool part of AI is now we can actually have more really personalized things like we've been wanting to do for years of super personalized websites. Every time you come back, the website gets a little bit more personalized. Yeah, the technology was kind of there in the past, but now it's really there because now you don't have to have everything pre-programmed. Like you could have AI just kind of really evolving it.
Yeah, very cool. Well, Perryn, it's been awesome catching up with you. I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to seeing you again in person sometime. But up until then, tell our listeners and viewers where they can find you on the interwebs and learn more about Alt.CMO.
Yeah, best place to find us or me is on LinkedIn. That's my most active, and I'm pretty easy to find if you spell my name right, which I know will be on the title of the podcast. So I'm the only Perryn Olson that exists until for now. But yeah, the firm we're Alt.CMO.net. We've got some great content on there, both AI written and human written. So, and one of the cool things we just published since you and I were talking was a big SEO report we did for construction. We took the NR 400 and ran them through all of our audits and stuff, and build out some, like, to me, as far as I know, the first industry benchmarks for SEO for construction. And now we're about to publish the architect engineering version as well, not the NR 500 site. So.
Very cool. I'll definitely check that out, and we'll link to all those goodies in the show notes. So thanks again for joining us today.
Yeah, it was a fun conversation. It's great to catch up, Josh.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us today on the Bold Brand Show. For all of today's show notes and links to our sponsors, head over to boldbrand.show. Be sure to subscribe to our email newsletter where I'll update you on the latest episodes and other exciting things happening at Bold Brand. If you liked today's episode, do me a favor and share this episode with a colleague. Over at boldbrand.show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts, including YouTube, where you can watch full versions of each episode and join the conversation by commenting below. The Bold Brand Show is produced by yours truly, Josh Miles, and is a product of Bold Brand LLC, a branding and video agency for AEC firms based in Denver, Colorado. Visit boldbrand.com to learn more, or hit that orange button up top to schedule a time to chat about your branding or video project. Catch us next time where we chat with another bold innovator in the AEC industry. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.